So I'd like to call the September 24th, 2025 board meeting of the Sea Pines POA to order. It is 10 o'clock, 10:01 actually, so pretty well on time. Madam Secretary, that's such a great title. I have to use it. Do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
All right, very good. And Laura, could you also deal with item 3 on our agenda?
Yes, I would like to recommend that we ratify the minutes Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. Do you want to take the vote?
I'm going to first step in and say, Chris, the audio is a little muffled for Laura. I don't know if the proximity of the owl is an issue but we need to probably get that fixed before we go too much farther. It's on. It's the audio part that was a little muffled. I couldn't quite make out what Laura said. Go ahead, Laura.
I would like to recommend that we ratify the minutes from May 21st, 2025.
There's a motion to ratify. A second.
Yes, Gary seconded.
Gary. All right, very good. Motion's made and seconded. Is there any changes, corrections, modifications to the minutes as presented? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Any opposed? All right. Motion carried, minutes are ratified. And next item on the agenda, I'm going to take the board president's editorial prerogative because, and I wrote the agenda, so it's my own fault. I want to combine actually item 4, the financial reserve and community fund policies item, and item 6A under work group reports. And I want to take these together because I think in explaining the reason, it comes down to this. We had some questions in advance of the meeting when the board packet was issued, and one of those questions came from Doug Shoup regarding again a cash balance over $500,000 and continuing to grow. What are the plans? And so I think it would be good to have our members hear from us regarding the deliberations we've had over the course of the summer regarding these two policies, which gets to the heart of his question, as to the amount of money, what are the plans, and to also hear from some or all of us, if you would like, regarding our personal perspectives on these two policies. So why don't we start, Lee, as you took the lead on this, kind of giving an overview of how these two policies came into being and sort of the gist of the conversations we've had as a board to date.
Sure, thanks, Keith. Is when I'm talking, is that coming through clearly?
It's still a little muffled. I'm not sure why the owl isn't picking up the conversation quite as clearly, but
That's just gonna raise the volume. Go ahead and try it.
yes, thank you. There, that does it. There we go.
So as Keith mentioned, there was a question raised earlier this year about the funds that we have in reserves and what the purpose of those were. And historically, looking back at least 13 years that I've been here, and being a part of at least some committees of ASPO, now Sea Pines POA, the reserves were all communicated that the intent was in order to defend, confidence in situations where, an event might occur where we would need to do that. So we had lively discussion among the board and did some research into best practices and also had input from, people that would be knowledgeable about the different aspects. So one of the aspects is what's the appropriate amount of money to have in, reserves for operating, and the best practices is anywhere from 6 to 12 months of reserves to cover current year's expense, based on current year's expense. And then the other is what we're calling a legal reserve fund, primarily again for what I just mentioned as far as we take an action, mainly because we feel we have a proper insurance to cover if an action is taken against the C-Fund POA. So those discussions evolved over the summer, multiple workshops and multiple iterations to the policies that were part of the package for today's meeting, which just briefly says that the legal reserve will maintain a minimum of $250,000. Previously, as I said, when I first moved here, the target for legal reserve was $1,000. I'm not sure we reached more than once or twice over the years. And then based on our current operating budget.
Those of us online are having difficulty hearing the room, so could you please speak up? Thank you.
Well,
Again, Chris, we haven't had this problem before with the owl, but I don't know if it's a technical issue of what is the primary audio feed, if it's the owl or if it's your computer. Or it's again a proximity issue of the owl to the table of speakers, but it is fading in and out.
All right, let me change the microphone to my laptop.
I
It's
think
not
it
gonna
already
be-
is, because that was pretty clear. You're very loud there.
Well, we have the owl selected as our source, but hang on.
Okay, all right.
Try it now. Test 1, 2. Can you hear?
yeah, so the gentleman had asked about the sound. Is this any better?
That's much better.
Fantastic. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Much better.
Sure, great, thank you for letting us know. So we arrived after great discussion to maintain a legal reserve balance of $250,000. And based on our current year's budget, which is $149,200, that would be our reserves for operating reserve fund. And then do you want me to move on to the community fund as well, Keith, or?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and provide an overview of community fund as well, and then I'll come back and summarize it for everybody.
So part of the discussion of our reserves was what's our purpose, and shouldn't we be spending some of our reserves in the best interest of the community? Not that the others aren't in the best interest of the community, but they're more long term. So we came to the conclusion that once we set aside the funds for both the legal reserve and the operating reserves, that the remaining funds should be put into what we decided to call a community investment fund that we would use for non-budgeted types of things, events, or anything that would come up during the year that would be of value to both our members and the community at large, that would not have been in our annual budget. And we, based on what was set aside for the legal and the operating reserves, the remaining funds at that particular time was in the $50,000 range, which is why the initial investment into the community investment fund was set at that number.
Okay. So at a high level, I'll kind of paraphrase what Lee said this way, and then open it up for conversation and input or reflection by the other board members. Almost as soon as I stepped into the role of president of the board, going to the annual meeting for 24, I had gotten questions about the size of the cash reserves and why and what we're going to use it for, et cetera, et cetera. So during the course of the summer, we ended up as a board in 3 different workshops, having pretty extended discussion and debate. So we ended up saying that we're going to hold in reserve a legal reserve fund of 250. As Lee said, historically, the number had been thrown around of $500,000 for as long as I've been on the board, but we decided 250 was reasonable. We decided it was prudent to hold in reserve, cash reserves, 1 year of operating expenses, just as a safety mechanism. And that could change in the future based on decisions of a future board. And then basically what was left over would go into this idea of a community investment fund, or in essence, utilizing excess, whatever was excess over those 2 first tranches, to make investments to benefit our members or the Sea Pines residential property owners more broadly, whatever at the discretion of the Sea Pines POA board, they decided would make sense and would benefit those individuals, groups, and enhance the quality of life for residential property owners in Sea Pines. So we had a lot of conversation about this over the course of the summer, and I would open up to the other board members to offer their thoughts or reflections on those conversations.
Gary Glass, I'll go first. Yes, there were numerous discussions about this. I think they were driven because we did get some questions, good questions about, we're holding a cash reserve. What are we going to do with it? Can we, at least what was near and dear to me, can we invest some of that money back to our members in the community to benefit them? And as far as I looked at it, that was a big driver here. Right now, we're set with like 50,000 for the community investment. Some of us may have disagreements. I wish I would have liked a little more set aside for that. But I think where we came out in our discussions is we're setting this right now, and this could be subject to change. The amounts that we end up setting aside in each of the funds, but we did want to have a legal fund that would give us the ability, if we needed to pursue any type of legal action, or if we didn't have we had any claims that were uninsured or not covered by our insurance, that those would be available and based upon history. And then the operating reserve again was just to provide a cushion in the event that for whatever reason our revenues were short for a particular year. So there was, lively discussion, I guess, but at the end of the day, I think this was a good starting point, and setting stage, good fiscal responsibility with what we were going to do with the cash reserves that we had. And so, personally, I might want to have more set aside for community investment and start looking at different projects that we might do in addition to the many that we're already doing for our members. But I think this is a good prudent start.
I would just add to that, and this is Kerry DeVillette, the $250,000 amount that some people may be asking, why did we land on that, was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, I think that was based on a recommendation from our council, plus maybe the conversations with several other attorneys felt that 250,000 as a base would be adequate. And the other part of it is, future boards can modify this as they see fit. So I think we all landed on what we felt was a reasonable amount. And that's how we got to where we are.
Yep. Yeah. Good clarification, Kerry. And I can affirm that It was based in part on conversations I had with our external legal counsel as to what would be a prudent number, or at least a reasonable number to start with. Uh, One of the points that Gary's made repeatedly, and I'll make it here, he didn't make it this time around. The legal reserve fund is not a defensive legal reserve fund. We have insurance for that. So this legal reserve fund is in the event that this board or a future Sea Pines POA board decides that it would be prudent to bring a legal action to enforce provisions of contracts or covenants or things like that. So that's the clarification on that. Anybody else? Okay. Hearing no other items, I'll call for a motion to approve. Let's say both of these at the same time. We might as well do those. So a motion to approve and adopt the financial reserve and community fund policies as presented. Do I have a motion to do? Thank you, Lee. A second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Any other discussions, clarifications, amendments? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting these two policies, say aye. Aye, or raise your hand. Any opposed? All right. I would make again supplemental comment, and the reason I offered the opportunity for other board members to talk about these. Sometimes it may feel like these board meetings are just merely ratifying and it's just a little bit cookie cutter. But I want you to know that we we have pretty robust conversations in our workshops leading up to it. So rather than we would never have time to develop and devise a policy like this in an active board meeting. So that work all comes before. So I just want you to know that there is very diverse views expressed about these things. And all those are contemplated and molded into what the final product is that we approve today. Larry, I'll turn it over to you for the financial report.
Okay, I'll call your attention to, we'll look at the year-to-date through the end of July. Our total income was $140,189. And our expenses, the administrative expenses were $40,761. Communication, $22,157. And our insurance and taxes are 51, or actually the insurance was $9,710. And it should be noted in this report that if you recall at the annual meeting, we mentioned that the IRS had levied a fine against us because we had not filed our 990 returns for 2 years.
Which 2 years?
For
21?
21 and 22.
Yeah.
Correct, right.
Okay. Anyway, they agreed that it wasn't okay, but they agreed to refund our fine. So we are getting back $20,760. We have gotten back $20,780 from the IRS. Our net income year to date is $88,340. I'll be glad to answer any questions anyone has.
Actually, and Larry, I'll jump in. Doug Shoup sent in some questions in advance when the board packet went out. And I'll mention these now because others may have the same kind of question. So there was a question about the management fees line in the income statement. What is this? And you'll notice that the first expense listed in the income statement is under administrative expenses, management fees. That pretty simply is the outside firm we use to do our accounting, our check writing, cash deposits. They also act as our corporate secretary and location for legal purposes. and then, you know, a few other things they do for us. So we have always had since the Sea Pines POA, or even when the Sea Pines POA or ASPO was managed by CSA, we had expenses related to these outside services. Again, we have no employees, and so we need to contract with everybody, other companies to do things for us. So that's what that is. He had a question about contractor fees, and you'll notice that there's an independent contractor line both under administrative expenses and communication expenses. So two different independent contractors. One obviously helps with things like getting out newsletters, getting out special announcements, getting them formatted, things like that. Under the administration expenses, that individual does quite a bit more for us, acts as secretary in terms of taking the minutes of the meetings on behalf of us, being the member LEAP, member management system, primary system administrator, along with some other board members doing it as well. Works to format presentations like survey documents. Lori will talk a little bit later about a document that he helped her do for a presentation to our members coming up in October. Just a number of different things like that. I'm forgetting many things, but we track those expenses. I track those expenses into categories each time we receive a billing, and we are tracking on budget with the amount that the board approved for the 25 budget. The last question that Doug had to do with a comment that I made back in the May 21 meeting regarding the difference between the cash balance at the time and the fund balance. And at that time, there was a difference. The primary reason for that is because early in the year, we get all our renewals. So a lot of the cash comes in January, February, and March, even somewhat in December of the prior year. And we usually use or mostly use a cash basis of accounting. But early in the year, the number that's in the cash account related to deferred revenue is so big that we use a deferred revenue account earlier in the year just to make a distinction between the cash that we have and really what the fund balance is. And the reason for that is because our expenses are throughout the year. We get the cash at the beginning of the year. So even though Larry pointed out that we have, you know, income, a very large income number of 88,000, that's because we've received all of the revenue and we're still paying out expenses as we go through the year. So that income number will continue to come down as we incur more expenses. So those were Doug's primary questions on the financial statements. Are there any others from the room that Larry would be able to answer for you? Okay. All right, let's move on then to the work group reports. Let's start with 6B then. We've already kind of covered A. So 6B, community standards. Gary?
Sure. What we have in the packet was a revision to our community standards committee charter that was adopted at our May board meeting. It's basically just a revision to reflect reality and quite candidly for cosmetic purposes. After we approved our charter at the end of May, we solicited volunteers to join our committee. We had a large number of people offer to be on the committee with limited positions available as the charter was originally set up. We also had drafted the charter to have two of the Sea Pines Homeowners Association presidents serve on the committee. That there's a separate Sea Pines Homeowners Association presidents group. And we wanted the co-presidents of that group to be on our committee. Due to time commitments that one of those persons had, she couldn't be on the committee, and as fate would have it, the other president is nominated to join our board. And he is the only candidate so far running to join our board. So that was just that reflected a reality. So we had limited the number of people other than them to be on this committee to 8 from the community. And since we had a lot of people express interest, we've just changed this charter to not have a cap on the number of people that can serve on the committee. And we have taken the co-presidents, if you will, from the Sea Pines POA Homeowners Association, off a slotted membership, since we don't have those people serving, and we've just put in that we are going to, as we have done, because I've spoken at these Sea Pines POA homeowners meetings, we are going to continue to solicit some of the presidents from that homeowners group to join our committee. So those are just the cosmetic changes that have come about through the reality of filling the committee over the summer. So the committee is now filled. There are opportunities if people would want to volunteer to join the committee, and this also gives us a degree of flexibility too. One of the goals has been to get a number of people representing various neighborhoods within our community. And I think we've done a pretty good job in representing the various neighborhoods, but some may not be as well represented as others. So I'd like to have the flexibility to potentially add committee members if there are gaps, within the community in specific neighborhoods. So that explains the revision for the charter that's before you. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So let's first, go ahead.
Do we want to have a motion to accept the revised?
That's where I was heading. I think first we need to have a motion to accept it.
Make the motion.
It's seconded. All right, very good. Yeah, thank you, Laura. I think now we can have a little discussion as needed. From my perspective, the initial charter, I think, was warranted because in order to begin recruiting or volunteers or members of the committee, you needed to have a charter in place or something in place that said this is what they're going to do. So the purpose of adopting it early was to lay out the framework, et cetera. As Gary began the recruiting process, it became clear early, as he stated, that the membership was a little restrictive in allocating slots. And so to make it more flexible, it seems reasonable now to go ahead and amend it to make it a little less restrictive as to mandated slots. I think the only other thing I would add in conversations I've had with Gary and other board members, it's still our intention to have, as he said, representation from a lot of the different groups. So it isn't saying that we will exclude certain groups. It doesn't say that at all. Still our intent to do so. So those are my supplemental comments on what we're trying to accomplish here. Any other questions or comments, clarifications?
I have a question. Will the
Go ahead.
committee meet in public?
We're going to have our first meeting with the committee where people get to meet and greet one another, and we talk about everything that we're going to be doing, including that. So we will probably have some meetings potentially in public, some presentations, but that's all to be sorted out with the committee when we have our first meeting with the committee in early October.
So to be determined.
To be determined.
Question? Any others? Clarifications? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the amended Community Standards Committee Charter? Say yes.
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 Very good. Any opposed? All right. Amended documented charter has been accepted. So thank you, Gary, for your work and everyone else that's participated in this journey to get this thing up and going. I think, as Gary said, the initial inaugural meeting is coming up, so there'll be more on this at each of the board meetings going forward. Another one of our committees, the Third Party Activities Monitoring Committee. Lee, why don't you give an overview of what's been up with that group?
Yeah, the major topic that I'm sure many of you heard through the grapevine was potential discussion by town council on a moratorium on short-term rentals and timeshares, things like that, and major development. Back in February, the Community Services and Public Safety Committee, which is now known as the Community Development Committee, was looking into what amendments needed to be made to the short-term rental ordinance now that it had been in use for over a year. And they held a meeting and came up with some suggestions. At their meeting of September 15th, I think some of the advanced information had included a potential discussion on the moratorium. It was made clear at the beginning of that meeting that that was not the purpose of the meeting, that would come up at the town council meeting the following day. And so therefore, although most of the Community Development Committee meeting on September 15th was directed towards short-term rental ordinance changes, there were still speakers that spoke relative to a moratorium. At the town council meeting on September 16th, there was a agenda item called workshop item on discussion of a potential temporary moratorium for the acceptance and processing of applications related to short-term rentals, timeshares, interval occupancies, and major subdivisions. It was strictly that. It was an opportunity for the town council to get input from the community, which I think they heard loud and clear. And subsequent to that, town council has put out a news release indicating that coming out of that meeting, they gave direction to town staff to work on amendments to the short-term rental ordinance to come back to them in the October timeframe, and that there would at this point be no further discussion on a moratorium. So that's where it stands right now. I think it'll really gear up over the next month. And Steve Alfred, who's our representative on town council, happens to be here and asked if he could make a few comments. So Steve.
Thank you, Lee. That was a very good, succinct, and accurate report of what's taking place. There really isn't any support among town council members for a moratorium at all. So that's kind of gone by the boards. Instead, there is an effort to get some revisions to the short-term regulations into effect as soon as possible, in lieu of not pursuing the moratorium. So the current schedule is going to focus on proposals that were made in February and repeated at the Community Development Committee meeting on Monday, the 15th of September, and to have those ready for presentation and the council meeting on October 7th, which comes up pretty quickly. Actually, there is an effort to have them go through the Community Development Committee either that day or the day before, October 6th or October 7th. So there will be proposals for consideration. The objective is to see if we can get to a second reading before the end of October and have short-term regulation revisions in effect or adopted by the end of October. That's a very quick-paced schedule, but it certainly is possible. The focus, as indicated, is only going to be on those items in the way of changes that were presented to council in February and again, a few weeks ago. Those will all be amendments to the municipal code. There will be a consideration of other matters that relate to things like caps, geographically, percentage-wise, time-wise, whatever, and a number of other possibilities will be taken up as part of consideration of amendments to the land management ordinance. That will be down the road someday. So that's not gonna happen, at the present time. There obviously is a lot of concern in the community in both directions. And the real estate lobby made themselves heard at the council meeting.
Steve,
Sorry.
could you, like, maybe just top of mind, a few things that you think are going to be some of those rules and regulation changes, enhancements? What might some of those look like, Mike?
Well, the first will be occupancy. The matters being kicked around are 2 persons per bedroom plus 2. And the current existing schedule, the plus 2, to be a larger figure as the size of the house got big. That's not likely to continue. The most likely thing to be presented, and perhaps adopted, is 2 per bedroom plus 2. So that means if you have a 4-bedroom house, you can have 10 guests. Another is going to be parking. No more than 6. No matter what, and you can't park on grass or any place else, you have to have a surface designated area for parking. Things like enforcement were adopted in February, so that's not part of what's currently underway, and there's now civil penalties. An issue will be what those term rental permit fees could be, and that will probably get us a lot of discussion. They're in 2 categories right now. One is for 0 to 4 bedrooms, and the other is for 5 bedrooms and up. Currently, the smaller one is $250. And the other one is much larger. By research into similar communities around the country, whether they are ski resort areas or beach resort areas, shows that the fees, particularly the 250, is very low. So the odds of that particular fee being raised are very good. It may be 500, maybe 750. The larger fee will not be more than $2,500. So that will be an item of discussion as well.
I can just add to that, from the recommendations that came out of the committee back in February. I would characterize them as 90% of those are safety related. Things like houses over a certain size having to have fire protection and things like that. And also, as Steve mentioned, to protect neighbors of rental properties on things like noise, trash, parking,
Lighting.
Actually, I don't think lighting
Steve,
was
lighting.
specifically listed, but
That's not been mentioned by him.
It has now.
No. Very.
I watched both meetings, the committee meeting and the council
You're a
meeting.
hardy man.
I was a hardy man. It was probably over 8 hours worth of debate. And I think we want to let our members know what's going on, at least where to look, so they can see it all for themselves. So we had the ordinances that were proposed for STRs back in February. And as I understand it, the committee has asked the staff to consider other changes. And you've highlighted some of those. Is there a nice cheat sheet that you have or could share with us that we could potentially share with our members that would talk about the new ordinances that were proposed in February and what staff is being asked to consider as potential changes that are going to come down the pike at the end of September, and then for final approval, by council.
Um, we're not quite there yet, Jerry. The town manager has a whiteboard in his office.
Right.
About the size of that television screen, that is jam-packed solely with issues relating to short-term rental regulations. I mean, there's scores and scores of items that, for consideration. Staff has just begun to go through those, with small groups of council members. So, the next thing that we're gonna see in an organized fashion is the presentation by staff at the Community Development Committee meeting, which is either Monday, the 6th at 10 a.m. or Tuesday, the 7th, at 10 a.m. before the Tuesday, 3 p.m. council meeting. So we're not gonna see anything in the way of, staff recommendations or suggestions or items for consideration until several days beforehand, we get the packet of materials.
So what's the best way, would you say, for us to let our members know what is going on? Refer them to the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes of that council of the committee meeting where the committee chair gave and you all gave marching orders to staff? Or should we say, wait and see when this proposed amended ordinance comes out and then we, publish that to folks?
Yeah, and that's gonna be on Thursday or Friday before the October 6 or 7 meetings. That's when the packets generally come out, is on Thursday. Public information will be on the website.
Thank you.
But Gary, there is a document on the website already dated September 15th that lists the recommendations from back in February. And that's the same list that the staff is working toward in general headings, but not specifics on each.
And that's what we're gonna put in our newsletter. Or a link to it.
Steve, a link or at least reference to it, right? Right.
Correct, yeah.
And I would remind everyone that going back to the spring after that document by the town management was published, we had provided some information even going back then as to the occupancy and a number of the other recommendations that are being discussed now. But I think, this is so important to our members. I would mention a couple different things. One, your board is having active conversations and how we go about keeping our members up to date on these moving and changing discussions by the town. And I mean that in a positive way. I think this is a complicated issue. And the town is taking its time going through the discussions and deliberations. So things are moving. And so we're trying to balance timeliness with accuracy. And so you have our commitment to try to keep you informed as timely as possible in various methods or manners with accurate information. Two, and this is an important one, Steve alluded to this in his comments. Thank you for being here, by the way, Steve. We have members that are on a wide range of opinions on this topic in general. We have members that are quite adamantly opposed to short-term rentals at all, even though the covenants, 1974 covenants allow it. And we have obviously quite a few people, 2,600 or so, who are short-term renters at various points in time during the course of the year. So the important thing to know is that the Sea Pines POA will not be taking a position on the issue one way or another. What we are trying to do is twofold: keep you abreast of the information as it develops, and if the opportunity presents itself, we will again think about whether or not we have a short survey to gather your opinions on whatever emerges, so that Steve and the town council will have the benefit of hearing from you in aggregate regarding what you think about the direction that things are going. So those are my comments, I guess, from a big picture.
In
Anything
terms
else,
of
Lee?
available documents, in terms of available documents, the only one that has come out so far that would be quite helpful was the staff proposal that went before the council, the last council meeting or the last community development committee meeting, in which they go through the entire analysis of short-term regs and moratorium.
Okay,
So Steve, I had a question, with regard to the fees. You know, right now, a short-term rental permit is $250. And I think, there are over 7,000 right now on the island or within the town of Hilton Head, so it's about $1.5 million in revenue to the town. Is the intent of the potential increase of the fees meant to be so that the town can have additional enforcement personnel, or is it to potentially dissuade new rentals?
Yeah.
Okay.
I carry the increases in fees is for multiple purposes. One of which is that by reference to what goes on in other communities, our fees are too low. It is to deal with enforcement, it is to deal with inspections, it is to deal with dissuading in certain cases. Yes, it's all of those, but the feeling is that fee is not high enough right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Right, Lee, anything else, or shall we move on the agenda?
Other than, I plan to be at both of those meetings, whether they occur on the 6th and 7th or both on the 7th. So, to the extent that there's new information that comes out of that, make it available to our board and, once we make a decision on what to do with it, then Lori would work on getting it out to all of our members.
Yeah, the time sequence here is not encouraging of keeping the Sea Pines public involved.
right.
It's moving very fast.
Well, that's my concern, because people don't have the time to view 8 hours worth of meetings. So I think it's important for the POA. We ought to get together. We ought to put something together, maybe consult with you just on the timing too, and also on some of these potential changes. So the public, whichever way they fall on the spectrum, knows what's going on, both for, people that live here, people that don't, but are our members, just so people know what's going on. And, I know we've talked about that a little bit among the board, but I'd encourage us to do that because the time's so quick. You may be, as I'm hearing you may be getting proposed changes on, on a Wednesday and voting on them on a Thursday or something. So we want to I think it's important for us to keep our membership advised. So, I didn't get all those dates, but maybe I'll try to reach out.
We got 'em.
Or we will, yeah,
Liam, we got
pin
it.
all that down.
Yeah, I mean, the big ones, the committee meeting will be either the 6th or 7th to be determined. That'll be posted on the town website once the meeting is called. Otherwise, the other two primary meetings are October 7 and October 21 at the regularly scheduled town council meetings. That start at 3 in the afternoon. So for our members who have an interest, those are the key dates coming up, but. All right, we will attempt to the best of our ability to keep everyone informed and provide, as I said, meaningful information timely and accurately, understanding the challenge that we have in front of us. All right, Lori, pivoting, you want to talk a bit about the community benchmarking project that you're working on?
Sure. I'm Lori Wellinghoff, and I have referred to this as the summer of the survey. Since I guess about May, we have been working with all of the large gated communities on Hilton Head, 10 total, including Sea Pines, to do a community benchmarking survey that looks at things like governance, communication, access to, documents, financial data, board meetings, committee meetings, amenities, you name it. We have asked every community to share data related to how they operate. And we have taken all of that data and put it into a presentation that compares every single community. Are we the same? How are we different? What can we learn from each other? And importantly, when there are issues that come before all of us, the greater island, all of us, how can we as the gated communities that represent the preponderance of the population work together to try and affect positive change? What are the issues and opportunities we might join hands on instead of being behind our gates and considering all of our issues to be insular? They aren't. They're also very much external. So by understanding how we all work, it'll be a lot easier to work together. Like, what percentage does it take to pass a referendum change in each community? Well, that's a pretty interesting data point. So without further ado, we will be presenting the results of the community benchmarking study in 2 town halls that will be identical. So you don't need to attend both, but I highly recommend that you attend. By the way, that can be in person or by Zoom. We will have that set up. And those town halls will take place at the Sea Pines Community Center. The first one is October the 8th, begins promptly at 9:30 a.m. and will go to 11. We'll not only be presenting the results, but asking everyone in attendance, both in person and by Zoom, to participate along the way, because there is so much information that we're sharing. I don't want people to have to wait till the end to ask questions. So I think it's going to be a very interactive conversation about how these things work. So the first one is October the 8th, 9:30 to 11 at the Sea Pines Community Center. The second one is October the 9th from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. approximately. It ends when everybody's done talking. Also at the Sea Pines Community Center. After that, we will publish the presentation on our website and send all of our members a missive to say, hey, this is here. Go check it out. If you have any questions, let us know. But it's a great way to understand how our community stacks up versus 9 other large gated communities in Hilton Head. That's all I have to say about that. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. The second thing I want to talk about, if it's okay, Keith, if I just keep going since I'm next on the
Go
agenda.
ahead, keep going.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
keep going.
The third Tuesday speaker series. The first one was last Tuesday, and we did an amazing event at Hilton Head Prep. The concept being that Hilton Head Prep is in Sea Pines. That is Sea Pines School. It exists in our community. And yet over the years, it started out as the community school. I mean, Charles Fraser and his many minions sent their kids there. The linkage between Sea Pines and that school was immense. There was just this sense of community. Now, we felt that a lot of people didn't even know what was behind those signs. You drive down Lawton, there's signs there. We don't even know what goes on there. So we decided to try and help bring the community back to that community school. And so last Tuesday, we had an event that lasted for 2 hours. It started in the gym where the cheerleaders did a wonderful Sea Pines POA cheer for us. We also had a band performance. We had all kinds of stuff. And then the headmaster talked to us about the school past, present, and future plans. Fascinating, just absolutely fascinating. For those of you that were in attendance, I had no idea what an amazing place that is. And then we all broke up into groups of 10 and went on separate tours of the campus where we met kids and teachers in their natural setting. We saw what they were doing. We had little 10-minute presentations, and we learned how to volunteer if you want to participate at the school. So I know a lot of us miss our kids, miss our grandkids. And what a great way to put the community back in a community school, but to go, read to kindergartners or participate if you're a scientist in the science lab. There's a school for entrepreneurship. There's all kinds of mentoring opportunities and, the list goes on and on and on. So we will be publishing, for those of you that attended and weren't able to attend, a list of some of the volunteer opportunities that you can do on your own schedule, however you like, and be part of Hilton Head Prep. So that was very cool. Our next speaker series is the third Tuesday of the month. We're starting to get that rhythm. This is our fourth season. October 21st, we'll be hearing from Duffy Stone, who is South Carolina's 14th Circuit Solicitor. For those of you who come from the north like me, he's the district attorney over 6 counties, including Beaufort. And he's going to talk to us about law and order in our town. And then one more I'll point out will be the November 18th speaker series. We will be hearing from Wyman Fraser Davis, and Wyman is Charles Fraser's daughter. And she is going to, the title of her talk is, "Let Me Tell You a Little About My Dad, Charles Fraser." And that both those speaker series events, as all of them do, except for the one that was at Prep, take place at Providence Presbyterian Church in the main sanctuary. And they all begin at 5 o'clock sharp. Speaker usually talks for approximately 45 minutes to an hour. And then we have a half an hour of audience Q&A. For those of you who haven't attended, you should talk to people who have. It is a soul nurturing experience, and you learn a lot about our community. So again, October 21st and November 18th. Other events coming up that I'd like to point out are the next Tower Beach BYOB social. Bring your own beer or beverage or boyfriend or anything that starts with a B, is September 25th at Tower Beach. That is Thursday. Starts at 4:30 Friday. What? Tomorrow. I'm retired. I don't know. It's tomorrow at 4:30 to 6:30. We have done, this will be our third. They are so fun. You meet all kinds of people you never met before. Some very fast friendships have formed as a result. We will continue to do these. Now the POA is providing snacks. So there's a reason to come. And there will be a special surprise that only I know about. Haha. So that's tomorrow at 4:30. If you wish to attend, you have to RSVP, please. Just go to the website and do that. And then one more event that should be on your radar. And that is October the 14th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the community center. We are having a Meet the Candidates event in person and by Zoom. So people who are not in town can ask questions and participate. Again, 4 to 6 p.m. on October 14th at the Sea Pines Community Center. Meeting the candidates, it will be in 2 tranches. The first hour will be meet the POA candidates, and there are 3 running for 3 positions. And then the second will be the meet the CSA candidates, and there are currently 4 running for 3 positions. Everyone has been invited to attend that is running for either of those. We don't have RSVPs from all of the candidates, so if they're not all there, apologies in advance, but I believe the majority will be. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Moving along, so we have some time for Q&A. Laura, would you talk about how the art sale issue concluded and then your nominating committee?
Yes, thanks very much, Keith. The yard sale was scheduled for October 19th. It was a Sunday at Sea Pine Center, as we had it last year. Unfortunately, we had to cancel because of a lack of interest. We had 27 participants last year, and we were really hoping to grow it beyond that. but we only had 13 people who signed up this year. So we felt that the participants last year wanted to grow it, so there would be more energy and more opportunities for shoppers. And we were going to market it in that capacity. But with only 13 coming, we felt that it would be better to cancel. So we're going to do it next year. We will try again, and with some added new features. I wanted to thank both Sea Pine Center and the resort. Sea Pine Center generously offered their parking lot again this year on that Sunday, October 19th. And the resort was going to be giving us tables so that everybody would have one table. And we appreciate both of them. And also Lori Allenbach was going to be my co-chair, and I appreciated her involvement as well. But we will begin working on next year, perhaps add some new features or opportunities and market it a little bit more widely. We've been limiting it to members of Sea Pines POA only, and we've had some suggestions that maybe what we could do is offer it free to our members, as it has always been free, but charge for people who are not members. And that way we might have more sellers, and then hopefully more buyers. So I'm sorry about that. I know there were some disappointed people, but we just thought it was best to go ahead and cancel. I'll go on and talk about the nominating committee. The nominating committee consisted of Alex Cruden, who is here this morning, and Lee Stevens, and Larry Holdren, and myself. We nominated 3 candidates that were announced about a month ago. Bernice Slutsky and Keith Burns will both return for a second 3-year term, and Tim McGowan will be running for his first 3-year term. The ballots will go out November 1st and need to be returned by December 1st, and will be announced about a week later. So thank you. Is there anything I need to add, Keith?
No, that'll do it for now. We have to take an action in a little bit, but I'll cover that one. Thank you.
Okay.
I just,
Go ahead.
I just want to mention
Go
that
ahead, Lee.
ballots will go out electronically unless we don't have a email address, in which case they'll be mailed. So it will be an email with a ballot that you can vote electronically and return it immediately.
Great. So let's go ahead and move that. At this meeting, we do need to adopt the key election dates. So it's proposed, that was included in the board packet, that the date of record be October 31st for determining members eligible to vote. And as Lee said, the ballots would go out on November 1 electronically to those where we have an email address. We have about 50-ish members who do not have an email address on file, so we will mail ballots to those 50-ish. And the period runs from November 1 to December 1 if adopted by this board, and then accumulated at the conclusion of balloting on December 1. So I will make a motion to adopt those key dates as presented in the board packet. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I saw Bernice wave a bit too. Moved and seconded. Any other comments and discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. A couple things for my president's report I want to mention. We haven't gotten together since May, so this is why this meeting is running as robustly as it is, and that's a good thing. During the summer, CSA adopted a operations dashboard. I want to commend them for taking that step. You'll recall, based on our community survey from last October, the desire for more transparency of information. You recall mentioning that we, as a board, wrote a letter to the CSA board on January 2nd, requesting some very specific things be published or included in their website. And lo and behold, the dashboard shows up at the end of Q2 2025. And it had most of the information that was included in our letter to CSA on the dashboard in various pieces. So I'll commend them for doing that. I think it's a good start. I had sent an email suggesting some additional improvements to the dashboard. And at their board meeting last week, Sam Bennett announced in answer to a question at the end of their meeting that they were going to make some changes to the dashboard going forward to include things like comparative period information, et cetera. So again, I just want to commend them for taking the step and increasing the transparency of information in our community. The other thing I want to talk about a little bit, and I almost feel somewhat like Dave Ellis during the course of the meeting, he said he had just received an email from their attorney. During the course of this meeting, I received an email from our attorney that was representing us in the referendum lawsuit. And I'll just paraphrase what Mark Goddard is saying. He says, and I'm reading here, we've received the mandate from the Fourth Circuit this morning, returning the case back to the district court. This mandate formally ends the Fourth Circuit's jurisdiction over the matter and concludes any action at the appeals court. He goes on to say, technically, the plaintiff has 90 days from September 17th, concluding on December 16th, to file a petition for certiorari to the United States Supreme Court. And that's a technical ability to do that. I won't read the rest of it. I just wanted to, again, be factual that there is potentially one more step. I'll leave it to you on the likelihood of what that means. I did want to talk about the referendum lawsuit, though, from two perspectives. And so it was timely that that showed up to give you the latest information. If you go back and read the federal court opinion that originated at the conclusion of the original lawsuit, it made clear that in the court's opinion, CSA did not have legal authority to call the referendum either under the South Carolina Nonprofit Act or the 1974 amendments. They utilized a legal theory that cured that issue, but I think it's important to recall and remember that the court did rule they did not have the authority to do that. So on a go-forward basis, I think it's important to keep that in mind in the event of future developments. The other thing that was interesting to me in some of the pleadings for the appeals court, it was mentioned in those pleadings that during depositions under oath, the CSA representatives more than once made the statement that they are not and cannot be agents for the residential property owners of Sea Pines. And I think that's important. It's not meant either of these statements to take a shot at CSA. That's not my intent at all. It's to bring clarity between CSA and what they are and what they're not, and what Sea Pines POA is and what we are. And we are the representatives of the residential property owners in Sea Pines. And so as things continue to develop in the relationship between Sea Pines POA and CSA, which I think is going well, and I think we do have a good relationship with them, I think it's just important to recall and remember what we have learned during this process of the referendum lawsuit. And so I just wanted to highlight those two things. You'll hear us talk about this more going forward as we flesh out our policies and procedures and tactics to increase the representation of the residential property owners, in Sea Pines, and how we will utilize that in terms of discussions with CSA or as it relates to the short-term rental issue already discussed today with the town or others that are contemplating regulations, amendments, or changes that impact the residential property owners. So I just wanted to make those couple comments. I will ask if there's any unfinished business to come before the board.
Keith, it's late. I don't know if this is
Yeah.
a proper place, but I just had a couple comments I wanted to make before we go to adjournment.
All right, very good. Go ahead, Lee.
I want to thank our members that are here and on Zoom.
Yeah.
And I want to basically do a membership solicitation by this, that over the last 3 or 4 years, the Sea Pines POA has instituted a lot of new things that didn't exist before, a few of which are the third Tuesday speaker series, our enhanced website, social events, multiple surveys to get our members' input, third-party monitoring what the town is doing, what the county is doing, and so on, community standards committee, and our monthly newsletter. So those of you that are members all have access to that. Some of your neighbors and friends do not because they're not members. So to the extent that you are a member and you like what we're doing, I encourage you to talk to your friends and neighbors, and for $50 a year, they can participate in all the things that I just listed and more to come.
Very good. Well
Yeah,
done.
very good, Lee. Thank you.
Sure.
Any new business? Go ahead.
What is who can vote in Hilton Head Island? Like, if you live here, you get a vote. But suppose you have a rental house, you get a vote. You own the rental house, you get a vote.
Are you talking voting in a town election?
Election.
I believe you have to be a full-time resident to vote.
All right.
Just
This has to
owning
be-
property,
Actually, Lee, you don't have to be a full-time resident. This has to be your
primary
primary
resident,
residence.
yes.
You, you have to be a South Carolina resident, yes.
Well, leave the board of the town council and the mayor up for election next year. So if you're unhappy about the short-term rentals, there's, you can always vote. Not this organization, but each one of us.
Right.
Correct.
Good point.
Well, I think we're at a good spot to ask, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, and then we'll formally move into Q&A after we have formally adjourned the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second, moved and second, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right.